I'm so excited to welcome back Sunny. Thanks for coming back again, Sunny.
Thanks for having me back, Leona.
So we were having this really interesting discussion before I pressed the button, and I thought I better press the button because this is getting interesting. And let's
Because I
start
am an
off.
idiot.
That's right. So if you're listening to this, I had posted. I didn't think about it too much, but what did I post, Sunny? It was
It said something like, sometimes I realize I'm hanging around idiots, and then I realize it's not just sometimes.
it's all the time, which I
And
thought
then
was really
I
funny.
commented on it and say, oh, speaking of which, I'm doing a live stream with Leona tomorrow.
Yeah, by the way, Sunny and I are hanging out. Yeah, so
This is the
and
prelude to it. In
yeah,
fact,
and
I'm
that's interesting
changing my
because
name on here to say idiot.
you should head idiots because yeah, I'm the first one to say I'm an idiot. But it's interesting because we started. I think that kind of got us just talking briefly, and I thought it might be interesting just to unfold this a bit because I was sharing with you that I kind of like taking labels that mean the opposite and just like owning them and and being like, yeah, like I am an idiot, and with such confidence that people start to respect you. Right.
Yeah, that's actually one thing I've said a lot about myself. I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. Like I just embrace that I make mistakes because growing up I didn't. I was so terrified of making any kind of mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And like growing up in an Asian household,
Yes.
like if you get anything less than an A on a report card, it's just completely unacceptable. And like that was my own standard too, but it was based on me not having any kind of security, like not having any kind of self-worth outside of what I did in school. And
Mm-hmm.
that was super unhealthy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So growing up, I had to like completely change that to say, wow, like I'm going to embrace mistakes. I'm going to actually just enjoy, or as much as I can embrace, like, oh, I just made a mistake. I'm an idiot. Let me learn from that. Let me have fun with it. Like even, and just, oh, wow, this is awesome. And then let's do the next thing.
I remember I was at one of the Inc. 5000 conferences and I met somebody there. I really apologize because I totally forgot the name of his company, but his business card, when you flip it over, he listed all his failures.
Nice.
And I was like, that is so cool.
See, I love doing that and writing bios,
Hmm.
because most bios are just like a list of accolades. I like to start with stuff that I failed at, like flopped in business for 20 years and all these different
Hmm.
things, like how many different things I failed at. And then I say, yeah, and I finally figured something out. Like, that's something people can relate to.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah.
true. Like if
Yeah.
you just put the highlights for life, people don't feel like they can relate to you very well.
I think there's banner blindness too, right? It's sort of like when you go into Clubhouse. Well, when I used to go into Clubhouse a lot more, and it was kind of like, oh, here's another room with like a bajillionaire, and and everybody's talking about right the things that they've achieved. But I think it was also interesting just speaking about words and the power that marketers have. Like, well, pretty much anybody who knows how to attract a lot of attention on social media and marketing, we actually have a lot of control because we can change the conversation. I bet that if you and I got together a couple of our friends and we said, "Hey, we're gonna own this phrase idiot and turn it around," we probably could and just start to change how people see it, and kind of the definition of it. And that's what we can do nowadays, right? With social media and just like getting everything online. I
That's
just think it's so
true.
fascinating.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's how all these memes start. And I mean, there's somebody that comes up with it, and then it kind of gets steam. I mean, but it's not like 1,000 people simultaneously decide to use it. It's just like one person, and then someone say, "Oh, I like that. Let me do that too."
Sure,
Or let me
like
say that too.
that one week when I didn't actually know what was going on until I looked it up. I was like, who's Brandon, right? And
I
then
was about to say, "Let's go, Brandon."
let's go Brandon, right? Like who knew?
Now there's two rap songs. I mean, they're like hitting the
Oh,
tops of
is
the
there?
charts. Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that really took off really fast.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's just fascinating. And then speaking of names, we are hot off the press here from yesterday's Facebook Connect conference where Mark Zuckerberg, if indeed it was actually Mark and not a bot, right, as some people are saying, announced that Facebook has changed their name to Meta. So, what's your take on that, Sunny?
I didn't see what he said, but wonder what the reason is for the name change, or like what the like what is the
Do you want to know what he actually said, or do you want to talk about what you think it actually means? Because I think that's two different things.
yeah, we can talk about both. Well, the
Yeah.
name Meta, I mean, like meta anything is like talking about the thing, like meta tags on an HTML page, or describing something about the page,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
like Copy Blogger. When Brian Clark started Copy Blogger, he said it was a very meta kind of concept, because he wanted to demonstrate what it's like to write good copy, and actually write articles about writing copy, but at the same time in the article demonstrate the actual things he's talking about. So it's a very interesting name. And he
Yeah.
said,
Well,
I think Zuckerberg said something about a metaverse.
yeah, I'm actually
Um,
pulling up his quote so I could just say this
so now
here.
we have
It's
Meta and Alphabet as Google and
That's
Facebook.
right.
It's very strange.
It's a weird world we live in. So Mark said he wants to build a metaverse, an online world where people can game, work, and communicate in a virtual environment, often using VR headsets. And that the existing brand could not possibly represent everything that we're doing today, let alone in the future. Over time, I hope that we are seen as a metaverse company, and I want to anchor our work and our identity on what we're building towards. So, and as part of this, it's time for us to adopt a new company brand to encompass everything that we do, to reflect who we are and what we hope to build. So, and I know he also talked about really supporting creators at some point as well. But yeah, like they really just they want to be known more than just Facebook, because obviously they've got, WhatsApp and Instagram and Oculus and these other companies, right? That I don't know about, but
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot there. But is Meta, is it sort of like Alphabet, where Alphabet owns Google and Meta is
yes,
going to own
yeah.
Facebook?
Which actually, I think people didn't even. I don't think a lot of people knew about Alphabet either, and now they know because it's everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
But I bet, like, before to yesterday, if you ask somebody, "Hey, like, who is Alphabet?" They wouldn't know, like, that's actually the parent company to Google. But yes, what I think was interesting is most people don't know who Alphabet is and how they're related to Google. But when Meta changed, like, I checked, they changed their Facebook page to Meta for Business, and they're changing Oculus to like Meta something. They want to have Meta in the name. So I
Wow.
feel like this rebrand is going to be much more visible than Alphabet is with respect to Google. Because I don't, I'm on Google all the time. I don't come across the word Alphabet at all.
Yeah, it's not actually one of their brands. It's just the parent
Yeah.
company.
Whereas Facebook, right? I'm on Facebook, then all of a sudden I'm seeing Meta, 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 like Meta for Business. I noticed the Canadian page change, and I think that I
That
think
is
it's going to be a
weird.
bigger branding play than what Google's doing.
That kind of branding change for a company that big, that costs a fortune.
Yes, definitely.
It's like all the business cards and like
Yes.
everything, right?
So
But
yeah,
so they have to have some pretty compelling reasons to do that.
I
And I
think
hear the
yeah.
government probes are part of it, but I mean,
Mm.
I don't know, see how that really helps them that much with that.
I just thought it was so the first reaction I had was, wow, that's a really good distraction. Because it
Yeah.
takes the word Facebook out again. I think it goes back to controlling the conversation, right? So now it
Yeah.
just takes the word Facebook out, and what happens when you just remove that word? Yes, the same issues are still there, but what happens when you just remove that word, because everybody's just been it's had such negative
Yeah.
connotations recently.
So I think that's what they're going to try to do, but who's going to start calling it meta realistically in conversations?
Well, who thought we'd have a search engine called Yahoo, right? Didn't you feel kind of silly saying it in a sentence the first time? Or
Yeah, but like,
Google, and people can pronounce it? I remember,
but
like,
it's not like Yahoo rebranded from something else, right?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
Google, like those were the company names that they chose.
mhm,
And then once culturally it became just like, yeah, it's Yahoo or that's Google. Like we've all been saying Facebook since however long, 2004 is when they started, right? So
right.
it's been a long time. I don't think most people are going to start calling it Meta.
I think, like,
I
I
could be
think do
wrong, of
not
course.
underestimate the power of money behind branding, and then and well, you know what? It would kind of prove the point of everybody who doesn't like Facebook, saying, "Hey, Facebook's controlling us, and Facebook is influencing us too much with ads." Like, it might be really interesting if they're using the same tactics to indoctrinate us to call them Meta, and then that becomes like, then we're all they've just proved that that's what they can do, right?
We'll see.
Yeah.
They'll still
I know,
continue
because I
all
was like,
their
am I a Meta
banning of
ad
ad
buyer
accounts and
now?
everything.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's the metaverse, and I just think it's very trendy because
It's
you've got
so abstract.
multiverse, metaverse, and
It's a very abstract name. Like normally brand like Facebook is a very concrete name. You can
Mhm,
actually visualize like something that like that looks like your yearbook in high school or whatever.
mhm,
And that was a really good name, but like
mhm.
Meta, like what the heck?
Yeah.
But I guess it's kind of the goal is to become more abstract.
Mhm. Yeah, more encompassing, more like, well, I mean, I don't know if I should read too much into it. Like, I mean, who knows, right? But it's interesting to me too that it went shorter, so again, it's definitely more encompassing. It's sort of like how God is 3 letters. That's it, right? Or it almost became somebody who's like an Oprah, like, is no last name. It's you're an entity, right? Then
Yeah.
yeah. So
Very interesting name.
it'll be really, really
Of
interesting. I know
all
some
the names
people
they could have
hate it.
chosen.
Yeah, Meta, but well, Martha Stewart has had her Omnipedia, or like she tried that, right? To where she wanted to be Omni Media,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I
I
think
remember
they're
that.
still there, right? And because I remember that's the first time I heard that term and somebody really talking about building a brand around that. So,
Yeah, I
but
know
it's
that term
very
from my programming days because that's a software engineering term,
oh, okay.
but it's also just it's a broad term as well, just like metaphysical studies, like for spirituality, and it's
Oh,
obviously more than just tech, right?
yeah.
Um,
Oh,
but it is interesting in the tech context because they're a tech company that like a meta tag is something that describes something else, but it isn't the
oh,
thing
that is
itself.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
so
Well, they
yeah,
are essentially just a company who owns a bunch of tech companies, right? So,
yeah.
yeah. I mean,
It's how a tech nerd would name a tech company that's a holding company.
and maybe that's what happened. Who knows, right?
Yeah, like tech people, for example, PHP, the programming language stands
Mhm.
for PHP. What oh, hyper processing? Like it's actually not the example. There's like recursive definitions where I like GNU is one. Like they call it GNU. That's the way they pronounce it. And
What does GNU stand for?
they say it stands for GNU is not Unix. So GNU stands for GNU is not Unix. So like they make up these that's called a recursive definition where they create 3 letters or 4 letters or whatever, and then they make the first letter actually stand for the entire thing. So GNU stands for GNU is not Unix. I mean that's funny to a programmer, like, and nobody else understands what the
Oh,
hell they're
okay.
talking. But that's like programmer humor.
Okay.
So naming a tech company Meta is kind of like programmer humor. Like nobody really
Oh.
understands it, but like software engineers are probably laughing right now.
What's very interesting to me? I just thought of this because in my mastermind yesterday, somebody was pointing out that when they're listening to a marketing message and they're hearing terms that they're not familiar with, it immediately makes the audience feel excluded and almost feels bad. Like, oh, I feel bad that I don't know about this and I feel like I'm on the outside. And now that you mentioned that meta, it's like what a nerd or a geek, a tech geek would name something, it
Yeah.
immediately excludes this whole group of people. Yet what they say is we're all about connecting people. And we want to connect to everybody. Yet they've now created, it seems like, this culture for tech geeks.
Yeah. And uh, I'm not looking to get political, but Facebook as you know, from a media buying perspective, they don't treat people fairly. They really like they banned me for running traffic to like running a day traffic to articles about how to talk to your kids about money. Like they refuse to reverse the ban still. And
Mhm.
I actually ironically have access to some of the highest levels in Facebook from like the client I work with, but it's like the way that they run the company is just messed up. It's just not effective in certain ways, and so they end up doing things that probably a lot of kind people in the company wouldn't do themselves. But structurally, policy wise, they end up doing these things as a company. So what
Yeah.
they say they stand for publicly often isn't what they do privately with those of us who are using the platform to give them business, like advertising and that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
It seems to me that, and I don't wanna go too deep into that because that could go off in this whole other area, but
Yeah,
what I find there, because I usually try and find the middle ground, but, like, what I observe is they are a victim of bureaucracy and over automation, like, too much automation. To me,
right.
when when somebody like yourself is clearly, and I know you and people listening know you, like you're not trying to scam people, you're not sending people to really scammy pages or anything like that. You're sending people to helpful information. If the fact that you got banned, I'm guessing it was probably due to just how the program is run, and probably mistook something because it's not perfect. It's far from perfect, and it can't be reversed or anything because they're stuck in their own bureaucracy. Like, you can't really get out of it. People think that there's some evil genius behind there that's going, haha, no, 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 no. I don't know that maybe
I
that's true, but from what I
yeah,
understand, it's a lot of automation because they're trying just to make it
right.
a computer program versus a human.
Yeah.
Um,
The bans are basically automation. The thing is, like, when they review and they still won't reverse these things no matter how many times they look at it, it's just that's what's questionable to me, is like, because there
yeah.
needs to be some kind of checks and balances in that bureaucracy to say, yeah,
Yes.
we're automated, it happened, and yeah, like the site was new. Like, the part that was on me for sure was that the site didn't look that great because it was a new site and I needed
Mhm,
to probably be more careful with that stuff.
mhm, mhm.
And
Yeah.
so lessons learned, and like I would do things, even I would get it to even higher standard before launching it.
Sure.
But like the actual content was really benign, and I intentionally
Mhm.
wrote it to be like really benign.
Right.
So
Yeah.
at least like on a human review, they could say, yeah, like make the site look better, things like that,
Yeah,
or
they
use
don't
a
have
different
that,
domain. But like just don't do that again. Just yeah, we know you've spent all this money, you have these clients, and okay, we'll reverse this for you. But
yeah.
they didn't do that, and it's been, I don't know, it's been several months or a year now.
Oh, in your
And so
past, once it past a certain time, they won't reverse
yeah, and
it.
I was appealing it right away and
Yeah.
all of that too, but like it was just difficult. So like the system that they have in place isn't effective. And
No.
like so rebranding by itself, for those of us who've had this kind of experience, doesn't mean much. They have to actually change.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I'm curious to see if they will, because I love Facebook. I love a lot of things they built and I enjoy using it. It's just that culturally there seems to be, and structurally there's some issues there. And I think I know I remember Google went through these things too, like years ago, where they were banning lots of people and then people didn't feel like they were treated fairly, and Google's
Mhm.
improved a lot since then.
Yeah. Well, it's again, I think it's the bureaucracy and it's the automation, and then not building in to, I guess, the whole system, that that fairness, right? That balances it out. When I teach law, I talk about the law of equity, which was developed because sometimes application of the law did not result in justice. So the king had to intervene so that the spirit of the law would be upheld, right? So that the little old lady who got ripped off, right? Like, she actually ends up winning at the end of the day in some way, right? And I feel like Facebook
Yeah,
doesn't have that. They just it's just it applies everything blindly, and yeah, they don't have any balance to address like the spirit of it, which is obviously to deal with all the stuff happening in the world today, keep off I agree with all that stuff. I don't want to see fake news. I don't want to see spammy stuff. I don't want to see hate talk and like racism and all that other stuff. But you're sweeping everybody under the same rug, right? So
yeah. And then I mean it's a slippery slope too, like who
yeah,
decides what's fake news and all of that.
true.
So
And then yeah, and
so
then it's like freedom of speech. I think they're in a
yeah,
tougher spot because like at least Google is more. I mean, Google doesn't. We don't see Google as a social network the way we do Facebook, even though it does have social networks in it. Because I feel like Google is more like we're searching for stuff, and then Facebook is just people are posting random
yeah.
stuff that it's harder to control that. Yeah.
Yeah, they withdrew from the social network business, the
Hmm.
Google Plus, which was
Hmm.
kind of surprising that they did, but
I don't know. I never used it. So I think I used it. I was excited to get on Google Wave only because I'm one of those people where you say you can't get it, it's by invite, then I'll do whatever I can to get an invite. So, and so then I got the invite, I logged into Wave, and then that was it. I waved goodbye.
you, you didn't actually use it, you were like, bye.
So, but speaking of automation, you said you had maybe some cool stuff you're working on with chatbots.
Yeah, I'm working with some. I've been building some quiz bots or a quiz bot and just improving it because I never actually built that before, and I was curious to test what how Quizbot will perform versus driving people to a quiz on the site, like on the website.
Mhm.
And so I've been working with that in ManyChat, just learning a lot of things because I had never really built out something that extensive.
Yeah.
And well, unfortunately, in the last few days, Facebook's been having a lot of issues with getting messenger bots to work properly. I've been getting lots of delivery errors,
Mhm.
and I filed a trouble ticket or support ticket, and someone got back to me and said, "Yeah, we're having issues with engineering right now, and it's just not working correctly." So I'm not able to test. I was able to test for like a day or like a day and a
Mhm.
half last weekend, and
Mhm.
then now I'm having these issues. But in ManyChat, you can preview the bot, and it'll open in your personal messenger in Facebook, and so you're able to test it. So I'm just really curious to deploy like the latest version I made because
Sure.
I have like UTM tagging and other things I added in there. Like I figured out how to do an email opt-in in ManyChat
Mhm.
and just make the whole quiz better. And I just like optimizing things, so it's really fun just to see people interacting too, because when people are taking it, you can watch them take it when you go to your page and you go to the inbox, and
Uh-huh.
it's actually you can actually watch them take it because they're sending messages to the page as they're taking it,
Mhm.
and you can see where they get stuck or where they stop, and then you get ideas for like, oh, then people are not going past that point. Maybe I shouldn't have this option, or maybe I need a follow up because there's new rules to it as well. Like you can only follow up for a day, and so I'm learning some of that stuff too. So I'm just kind of piecing it together. But I figure that keeping people on Facebook is better than immediately taking them off the site.
Mhm. Yeah. So yeah, so you're having it where so normally the quiz would be on a page and you just click, 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 like how we normally take quizzes. But when you move it into a chat bot, it's actually more of a conversation, right? Like they take the quiz by choosing options, right? Like so it's like a DM going back and forth to take the quiz, right?
Yeah, so they see a prompt like text, which is the question, and then they see a few answers, and then they click on the answer that they think is correct, and then you have logic in your bot that if it's not the correct answer, then you can take them. Either you can show them a correct answer, or you can wait until the end, or you can increment a score that if they get it right, or not increment it if they don't get it right. So you can do all those things the way you would do on your site using some other kind of software. And I think people just inherently feel safer when they're on Facebook because they're used to using it, whereas they're not used to using it. They're not used to going to a site that they're not familiar with.
Mhm.
And a lot of people these days are very hesitant to click on anything because they feel like they're scared that they're going to get retargeted or something's going to happen.
Yes.
And like they
And
don't even want to click on anything
mm,
unless they trust it enough, which is really fascinating.
yeah. And so I'm curious how long your quiz is.
I started out at 12 questions and then I added another one yesterday. And so I think the max I'll go up to is like 15 questions.
Wow, okay. That's really what's interesting to me is when you click and you go to a page and just do the quiz there's usually a progress bar. You can see, how many more
Yeah.
questions there are, and I wonder how that compares to when you're doing it in a messenger bot because you have no clue how long this is gonna be.
Well, the start screen, you want to tell them that there's only this many questions. And then for every question at the top, put a little heading and says question one out of 12 or question two out of, so that they
Okay,
feel that progress as they go.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was something I didn't have at first. I was like, yeah, I want to show them like where they are so they don't just abandon.
Yeah, I'm
They're
like in
actually
this
making progress.
never-ending loop.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a nice thing. And I found out that in ManyChat, if you put asterisk characters like the star characters around text, then it makes them bold. So you can put that around like question one out of 12, and it'll show it in bold right above the question.
Uh-huh.
That was a little nice Easter egg I found.
Yeah, like a little markup language in there. Yeah.
Yeah, basically it is. So there's probably a way you can italicize and maybe like underscore characters or something.
I was thinking that, yeah, probably. And
Yeah.
so, but you haven't really been able to test it, right? Because Facebook was down.
I was able to test the
The
first
thing.
version for like a day, and
Uh-huh.
then yeah, then there's Facebook's been having all kinds of issues since then. But I'm
Mm,
curious to test it now because I added like a whole logic at the end to see if they have questions and to guide them to different parts of our website and or to ask a question in the bot if they have that. So I'm curious to see like how people interact with that
yeah.
because ultimately you want these things to actually convert into something downstream.
Sure.
And I haven't been successful with that part so far, but I'm learning.
So what's your, I guess when you're testing this, first of all, how many people do you think you need to go like what are your numbers that you're hitting or like that you want to hit before you're saying, okay, this test is done? Because you've already gone from one version to the next version. It sounds like you went pretty fast, right? So how many people were you trying to get through first before you decide, okay, now it's time for a second version?
Well, I knew my first version wasn't great anyways. I knew that I wanted to understand how to make better quizzes or just better bots in general in ManyChat. So
Mhm,
I had these ideas in mind. I didn't know how to do them.
mhm,
And so I just had a list of ideas and then I started researching like how do you do this? How do you do that? Like, oh, that's how you do. Okay. So I knew that it could be better. So I just not like I got enough test data on the first one. It's just that I knew that I want to improve these things. So as soon as I can do that, I'm gonna roll out another version and test with that.
mhm.
And and so that's what I did. And like for example, at every question now, I give them a chance to opt out if they don't want to, so they don't feel like trapped into it or anything. Because that feeling of psychological safety, I'm learning. I'm studying behavioral economics and other psychology and other things. Like they say that that's so important.
Mhm.
That constant feeling of psychological safety, that's what they actually call it, is
Okay.
so important for keeping people engaged in anything,
Mm,
engaging them in the first place and then keeping them engaged. They want to feel safe the entire time. That's one of the reasons why I'm curious to help people stay on Facebook longer. And
okay.
then also just to give them an opt out at every step because
Oh,
it's a company that like it's a company that would do that. That somebody would say, you know what, like they're giving me a chance to opt out at every step. So they're more likely to trust that instead of
well,
feeling
that's
like you're trying to
interesting.
trap me or something.
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of people would feel like fear, right, in putting that in there.
Exactly. That's what we were talking about right before we got on here too. I'm
Yeah.
becoming more aware of how fear has been driving my decisions as a marketer, as a person in general, but like especially in marketing, like we're afraid, like we're spending all this money and we're so afraid that people are not going to convert or we're not going to be profitable or whatever's going to happen or our reputation's at stake or whatever, right?
Mhm,
So we end up doing things that end up feeling like to the prospect that, oh, you're trying to pressure me into something, you're trying to trap me into something. So oftentimes as we got into this line of work to serve people, right? Our intention is to serve people and to learn how to do that in a
mhm,
really effective way and to do that at scale to serve a lot of people.
mhm,
And oftentimes when we're having fear about something, we implement things in a way that the perception is that, oh, you're just trying to trap me, you're just trying to scam me. And so the intention and the perception end up being completely opposite. And that's just really sad. So I'm just trying to become as aware as I can of like, where am I doing that?
mhm. And when you first started discussing launching the quiz, I picked up on that because you said you knew the first version of the quiz wasn't your best work, shall we say, right? But you
The
still
questions were good because I put
launched
a lot of
it.
time into those,
Okay.
but like I knew like flow wise and having all the like the messaging and the opt outs and everything. I just didn't know how to do a lot of things.
Sure. And how
And
many people would
and
let fear just say, "I need to feel 90% comfortable," versus you were probably at 70%, I'm guessing, something like that, right?
I was a
Uh,
little bit more because I had implemented this in a form on the website, and so I
okay.
had it in my head. But then when I went to ManyChat, the problem I had was you can the answers can only be 20 up to 20 characters long. So I
Mhm.
had these
Oh,
answers that were a lot longer. Than I had to like distill it down, and I had to like rethink some of it.
mhm,
And I asked some of the questions a little bit differently. But I had so
mhm.
that was a mental hurdle I had to get past.
Okay.
And then
But
once
you
I got
jumped in
past
and you
that,
just started, right? And
yeah.
you just
So I
started
was
and
like,
like,
this is
"Let's
a
figure it out."
V1. I'm gonna
Mhm,
make that, and then like it didn't even work correctly at first.
mhm.
It would show like it would show 3 questions at the same time. I was like, "Why is it doing that?" Turns out there's this little option at the on every box that says next step, which means it'll automatically go to the next. I didn't know that that's what
Oh,
it was, and
okay.
I had them all hooked up. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, this isn't working at all. So my quiz at first didn't even work.
Uh-huh.
And then I had to like sleep on and come back the next day and like learn how to make it even work. And then oh, okay. So I got it to work, and that was the V1. I was excited to roll that out. And at the end of the quiz, I had this Bitly link because I had no idea how, like, I didn't know how to make a link inside like on a button or something.
Right.
So I just put a Bitly link on there that had all my UTM parameters in there because it's a short
Okay.
link, and so it was kind of crude. And then I was like, I could probably do better than a Bitly link. There's got to be something I can do. And they're like, oh, you can link a button. Okay, that's good. But like even now, I don't see any way that you can pass the UTM parameters in from the ad into the bot. It doesn't look like there is a way to do that, but at least you can hard code it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you set it in
Yeah.
variables. So I'm doing that now.
Yeah. I
There's a
now
lot of
do.
things you can do to improve it. It's not a perfect system.
Yeah, like two things there. Like, first of all, I just want to say, like, what I try to do is I'll just tag, right? And then have the tags get pushed over into the CRM. It's kind of like the best way you can kind of segment people. But again, like just hearing you go through the process, I think a lot of times we allow fear to stop us from going through that process. And I think a lot of times we don't even get to that point where, you were thinking, oh, there's got to be a better way to do this. Like it's working kind of, but there's got to be a better way to do this. And you're figuring it out versus letting fear and imposter syndrome take over. Oh, I'm really bad at this. Why can't this work? I'm so frustrated. Right.
Yeah, it's really important, and to get as excited as you can about it is just like create a project that's coming into fruition on your screen. It's like, wow, yeah, well, like this part here, could I have logic where I ask them a question and then they get to choose like what kind of questions they have, or they get to choose between seeing FAQs or talking to somebody, or like, would that work? And it's and then I learned about actions, like actions in ManyChat. You can use those to set tags or to unset tags or to set a variable, and then you can use that variable later on in your link that you're going to send them to. And it's like, oh, it's like all these different things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
So you can create something that can really serve people even when you're not there. And then the part that a bot isn't good at, you can step in and do that part.
Right. Yeah.
So one thing I want to figure out now is like if they click talk to a human, how can I somehow get that to ping Slack so that somebody, not just me, somebody in our team can go
Uh-huh.
and reply to them as quickly as possible. And I got to figure that part out. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to do it.
Yeah. And so what happens when you come across a problem that just, I don't want to say it's impossible, but you kind of try your normal stuff and you just can't. You really feel like you hit a brick wall.
It happens sometimes because sometimes there just isn't currently a way to do something. But then I try to like zoom back, like what is my overall goal here, and then there might be like a completely different approach to it. Because let's say ManyChat doesn't have this feature to pass in the UTM parameters from the ad into the bot. I don't think it does from what I've researched. But even without that, like I can set those in variables at the beginning. That's the best I can do. I have to hard code it, and then overall my goal is to generate prospects who are more qualified. And like, what else can I do? And like, there's completely different ways to do that. Just other stuff I'm curious to test that on Google. Like Justin was posting on Google Display yesterday,
Mm-hmm.
and that's something I've been experimenting with, but I've failed completely at it so far. Even now that I've excluded mobile apps, like all the mobile apps, you have to exclude them one by one. By the way, this is a long list,
Wow.
and there's like drop down boxes. And you have to be really careful to exclude them all because otherwise you get tons of junk traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And then YouTube display traffic. I've realized I need to take that out as well, and then ended up with not getting a lot of traffic, but I was getting site traffic, but then that didn't convert either. So I'm just like failing and failing and failing, but I'm like learning.
Yeah.
Google Display is really not easy, but it's one of those things where if you can, like he's saying, if you can get good at it, then it can be a good thing. But
Right.
I'm definitely in failure mode with it. But I'm just excited all the time that I'm like, oh, what's the next experiment? That's just my mindset.
Okay. Because it sounded like two things. Yeah, like you're really excited. And I mean, even when you were talking about ManyChat, I noticed that you just kept saying over and over again, I'm doing this because we want to serve a lot of people. Right. And so that's your why, right? You keep that in front of you. And then I
Yeah.
also noticed that you see, maybe you don't realize this, but it seems to me like your brain just starts to go through a list of questions each time.
Yeah, and some of that is for my overall personality as an optimizer. I just like constantly iterating all the time. Like I wake up excited every day with ideas that I'm come to my desk and I'll start making things better, just improving and testing all that kind of stuff. It's just natural to me. But and that's partially why I was a software engineer for a while and all of that. So some of that is personality, but it's also a mindset you can just adopt. Even if someone says I'm not like that engineer type at all, I'm just like creative. Like it's really the same thing because it's
Mhm.
really that creative part of me that likes doing that. It's you can call it whatever you want to. Really, is how do you constantly explore? That's really what it is. It's just exploring.
Mm,
It's getting
yeah.
back to that childlike curiosity we all had.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I play with these Legos, what can I build today?
Right.
Or these paintbrushes, and that's what it is to me. It's like there's so many cool things you can do with these ad networks and tracking and analytics and bots and all these things. And then of course, just serving people by sitting there and chatting. I'll spend hours just sitting and typing back and forth to people in different places. So it's all fascinating to me, like how it all comes together to help people.
Yeah. I mean, I love how you've sort of taken what some people, when you start talking about tech stuff, it just, goes over their heads. But I love how you've kind of taken that and humanized it because you connected it to your passion, right? Which is solving puzzles, learning new things, doing more experiments. And that's really, it sounds like that's what drives you and keeping that passion sort of like front and center, right? No matter what happens.
I think my deepest driving force is it's really just helping people communicate their inherent purpose.
Hmm.
I feel like we all have a purpose. It
Hmm.
may not be like a purpose, but we have things that we're here to do in this life, and whether someone agrees with exactly how I think about it, it's just that in any given day you wake up and if you feel like you're called to something to do,
Hmm.
then that's the thing for you to do.
Yeah.
The challenge is, and this to me, this is the tragedy that many of us, when we want to go and put something in the world that we deeply care about from our hearts into the world, we often say it and do it in a way that nobody understands.
Yes.
And then, like, to me, that is my driving passion is to help people do that better. And so, all the tracking, analytics, testing, all that stuff, all that rigor, all of those are just tools so that I can help people communicate that heartfelt message in a
Hmm.
way that resonates for other people, so those other people will actually embrace it and say, yeah, I do want to be your customer, I do want to do that with you, I want to, yeah, let's do this together, you're the right person for me.
Hmm.
So so I'm so thankful I found you, because
Right.
that is the moment that I live for. I just love to see that, whether it's with me or you or Justin or anybody, like for someone to see that in, like, to see your heart, to see your talents, and to say you're the person for me.
Hmm.
I love that more than anything.
Mm.
All the other things are just tools to make that happen, and they're cool tools. I enjoy them. It's just like, but they have to be tools in service to that.
Got it. Yeah. It's interesting you brought that up because that seems, at least for me, that's been a theme this week. Talking about, like, just talking with people about what their superpower, like I'm calling it their superpower just to help them get their head around it. But it really is more about what's your one true purpose? Because often I find that that does go hand in hand with what you're really, really good at. Probably because like it's all in alignment, right? You're excited about it. It really is what your purpose. You're meant to do this. So I think it just all kind of comes together. And I just think it's really interesting you brought that up because I've literally been having like just completely different conversations with people that they don't know each other, and we're all talking about the same thing. So it's really interesting you brought that up.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I'm having to face a lot of fears in my own process. Like lately, I started being active on Twitter almost every day, and even more on Facebook, like you are. And I'm not as
Are
much
there
as you are
people
right
on
now,
Twitter
but
anymore? Like, I'm sort of on Twitter, and I kind of wish there was more humans there, but I always feel like it's just a bunch of bots. I'm talking like it's
it's
my bot talking to their bot.
I think companies are trying to do that, and that is also a sad thing. But I was really skeptical too, because I'm like, in 2021, like almost the end of 2021, is that really, like, is Twitter still relevant? Because I started hearing lately that, or in the last couple of months, hey, Twitter's still a good place to do networking. I was like, really, in 2021?
Yeah.
Because I was hearing that 10 years ago and 5 years ago maybe, but like, really, and I'm finding it actually is still fantastic. It's just amazing, actually.
Really?
I'm
Wow.
finding like connections there that, like, in ways of connecting that I haven't found anywhere else.
Like what, for example?
Well, just being able to actually get responses from people and then to go off, like, sort of offline, not offline, but, like, into direct messaging and to
Mhm.
actually feel like I'm bonding with this person. Like,
Mm,
this person, because a lot of times people are sharing their insights, and they really appreciate it when you acknowledge that, you click a heart, you reply to that. They
mhm.
really appreciate it, I know I do, and then it feels like the bonding happens faster there. Because
Interesting.
that's what people use Twitter for, well, not the bots, obviously, but they use Twitter for, even when they're using bots, so if they're the ones writing the content, like it's them putting it out, then they want that to be acknowledged, and they want to connect with other people who want to have similar conversations about
Mm,
things. And so that's been really cool, actually, that still exists on Twitter, and it's this place that's different than any other place to
right.
have that. It's You can do that on Facebook to some degree, of course, and other places. It's just I'm finding it somewhat easier there.
It's so interesting. I must be in the bad neighborhood in Twitter.
It depends who it is though. Like if they're a big
Yeah.
influencer, they have a big audience, and like they're the type who's just not gonna respond,
Mhm,
then it's still gonna be hard. But even them, apparently, a lot of people who have like big Instagram followings.
mhm.
This is one example I've heard. Influencers, they're more easily reachable on Twitter
Interesting.
than they are on Instagram, because
Yeah.
they get bombarded on Instagram, whereas on
Yeah.
Twitter, they're kind of there to network with peers and other things.
I guess it's also how you use it because
Yeah.
I hate going into my DMs on Twitter because they're just full of it's like LinkedIn, like they're just full of so many messages and people saying, download this, do this,
That
call with me.
happens, yeah.
Like it's like I don't even know you, right? And then but I can understand that because sometimes on well, you know what, I think Instagram does a better job of filtering out that out for me and I kind of experienced what you were saying on Instagram, but I think it's because I use it for networking and I use it to actually to have
Yeah,
conversations with people.
good.
Whereas Twitter, it's more of a broadcast tool for me. Although I want to use it more because I love that they've got audio clips. Like I could leave an audio clip. You know that I love that, and I've gone into a Twitter Spaces. I've never started a Twitter Spaces room myself, but I wanted to try that. They have some cool things, that
Yeah, I'm curious about spaces, because isn't that supposed to be like groups, kind of?
yeah, it's like, it's not like groups, it's more like Clubhouse. So or
Oh,
like
okay.
Facebook audio rooms. So,
So it's meant to
yeah,
be a live experience.
yes, yes, and then
Okay.
you go into it like, as I've gone into space before, I mean, it's a room really, right? But it feels like a Facebook audio room, or it feels like a Clubhouse room if you've ever gone onto those where you see
Mhm.
a bunch of people, it's like kind of a stage and then people are talking. So I just don't see that many. I think there's always only one at the top there. So I'm just probably not in the right network. But, yeah, it's just and I just, I don't I really liked that you can leave, like, little audio clips. It's almost like a little mini podcast you can put there in your feed, but to me, like, Twitter, the tweets are so last like, they don't last very long at all. So
They
sometimes I
don't.
feel like, is it worth
Yeah.
it? But it sounds like you're not really broadcasting on there. You're more, like, interacting with people, right?
I do both. Yeah. And I think as the number of people you follow grows, like, you're gonna get more tweets, right? And the number of people who follow you, it does become harder, and that's where tools can help. Because
Yeah.
if you wanna keep up with
I've got a
certain
lot of
people,
followers.
then yeah, if you wanna keep up with certain people, then, yeah, like, you have to be more intentional about it, like, to make sure you're
Mhm.
going back and seeing the stuff that they posted, like, in the last few days and all of that.
Mhm.
Because yeah, like, the feed goes so fast. By the time you're even done writing a tweet, it says there's 5 more. It's like, there's a lot
Yes.
there. On the
Yes.
other hand, because of that, people are actually very appreciative when you take the time to engage.
Right.
Unless they're, again, like a really big person, they're not gonna,
Mhm.
with a big following and all that, they may not
But that's
engage.
the
Who
case
knows?
anyway, right? Like, yeah, like
Yeah.
Oprah's just not gonna respond to you personally because she's not managing her social media,
Yeah.
right? But, well, I think
But
what I might do
Instagram
is
too, like you said, that was a good example too, because
yeah.
I've heard there's a lot of networking happening there too.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I haven't done that because I like things that I can access on my desktop versus having to type on my phone.
Oh, okay. I can understand that. I can
It's just a
understand
lot
that.
easier for me. I guess I'm old
Yeah.
school.
No, I'm at my desktop a lot. I actually love my phone more now. Like, I have an emotional attachment to my phone, so I find that I use it more. So I
Really?
love my rose gold iPhone.
Rose gold iPhone.
It's just, I used to be a diehard BlackBerry person, and I really miss that old time keyboard where you could feel it like it was a real keyboard. I really miss that keyboard. But when the first time I got an iPhone, and it took me a while, like, wait, I tried an Android and I just hated it. I just hated it. So then I got an iPhone, and it was like having another child. Like, I just immediately fell in love. Part of it, though, I think it goes to my personality, how I told you, like, I need, like, if I can't get access to it, I'm like, I want it. So part of it was also, I think, the journey to get I got an iPhone 6, and I got it in rose gold. I remember, I couldn't find one in Toronto, and I ended up getting it on the way to New York. We found it there. So this whole adventure, I guess, to get it, and it just, yeah, like, I fell in love with it. Like, I had this emotional attachment to it, and then it was only, yeah, and then I upgraded to an iPhone 12. Like, that's how long I waited from 6 to 12, because
Wow.
I just really loved it so much.
So is your new one a rose gold as well?
Yes. Yes. I just have and I upgraded
Is
because,
there
like,
actual gold in it, or is that the color?
no, it's the color. It's like
That's
this
a
nice pink, and
it's a pretty color though.
it's a pretty color, yeah. And I've
Yeah.
talked to other owners of iPhones that are rose gold as well, and we all feel the same way. So it's
That's a
it's
cool
a
story.
thing.
No, it's a story of how you became a customer.
Yeah, it is, and then the only reason I upgraded was because I literally could not function using the tools I needed to use on the phone, just because, it gets obsolete, right? So, and then having the better camera and all this other kind of stuff, like, because I was like, "Oh, I gotta get on TikTok," and, so that's why I got the new phone, and, yeah, I love it.
That's
I
cool.
really, really love it, so I use it a lot more. Before, I used to hate using my phone. I just
Every
did
company
everything on the desktop.
needs passionate customers because you're a real customer ambassador. I mean, you're broadcasting it literally right now.
Yes,
We all need customers like you.
that's the thing with Apple, like, whatever they do, and it's just the
Yeah.
shape, and it just, the whole, and I'm a big packaging person too, so,
Yeah.
I'll
And
buy the makeup and stuff that's more expensive because I want the packaging, and I want that feel. So again, like, Apple just takes it to another level. Like, even just putting those little tabs on the plastic, so I don't have to, like, scratch it and try and, like, open the, it's
yeah,
just so
yeah.
elegant, and you just, it really is I remember the first time unboxing my iPad, like, the first iPad I ever got, I won, and because we thought, "Oh my gosh, like, it's just too, like, that's just something we would never have, an iPad," right? And I remember just getting it. I just remember staring at it, not even turning it on. Like, it just looked like this, it's like, "Ah," it's there. And then you turn it on, and you just like, "Oh, like, we've arrived."
Yeah, true
Never felt that
tablet.
way about a PC, even though I love my PC. I don't use an Apple desktop or anything. Like, I just
Hmm.
can't. But,
Oh,
yeah,
interesting.
the mobile devices, my Apple Watch, like, yeah. I
I feel
am
like
in hook, line, and sinker, like,
Yeah, and I feel like what you're saying really puts a nice bow on the fear conversation because Steve Jobs and the culture of Apple, they've refused to let fear stop them from going towards whatever they considered perfection.
mhm, mhm.
If it cost more money, that was okay. If it took longer, that was okay. If it took enormous numbers of hours, nights and weekends, that was okay. Like
Sure.
if it pissed off investors, that was okay because it
Yeah.
was all in service to the customer. Like we have to make this amazing so that people like Liana can have this fantastic magical experience and then tell other
Yes.
people. And
Yeah.
because they refused to let the fear stop them, they went beyond and did something that really is remarkable.
That's a good point. Yeah, I wonder how much money was spent to come up with just the way that the tabs are on the packaging. And even the fact that they're a little bit
Yeah.
matte, and I mean, I noticed all the stuff there, which you're right, that's really interesting to think about, and, like, what kind of value can you put on that, right?
Yeah. So they're late, late, some might say, in bringing to market the Apple Car, but
Mhm.
it's probably going to be an
Oh, wait,
amazing
what?
product.
I don't know about this.
They're
An Apple
developing it.
Car?
It's supposed to be secret, but as Elon Musk, and you can go on,
Clearly
you you can no, I mean you can go on. It's like my secret, but you can go on YouTube and type in Apple Car, and you'll see it. It doesn't even have tires; it has spheres. is you
Okay.
can just pivot any way you want. It'll just pull out of a parking spot by just swiveling out of it. It's crazy.
Wow. Is it gonna be built
Um,
like a Tesla, like it's electric and
yeah, it is apparently. And one of the clips online on YouTube is Elon Musk being questioned about the Apple car, and he said, well, it's not really a secret. It's kind of hard to keep a secret when you hire 1,000 engineers. So it's kind of like an open secret,
right. Yeah.
but we don't know when it's actually going to be deployed.
Right.
And who knows?
Interesting.
They may end up nixing the project because it's not an easy project. But
Yeah.
I think that they will bring it to market. I'm guessing that they
It's really
will.
interesting. Yeah, it's amazing how like I used to discount branding because I'm just like numbers, 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 right? Who cares? Branding doesn't matter, but it really, really does. I mean, and
Yeah, it
also
really
look at the
does.
passionate people for Tesla, right? It's just it's not it's I never again like I remember distinctly the first time I ever sat in a Tesla, right? It's like oh, it's so sleek. It's you know, it's a different
It is.
experience,
Yeah.
and you know, it's not like the Volvo that I used to drive, so it's
You have a Tesla
you know
now?
no,
No.
no. We're that's a whole other story. We're a Nissan family. So when my
Nice.
grandfather first came over to Canada, he I don't know how he met him, but he met Eddie and Helmut, who owned a Nissan dealership. And you know, my grandfather's very loyal, so he bought his first car from them, and he just kept buying cars from them. And even when he moved to out to BC on the west coast, he wanted to order his new car from the Nissan dealership here in Toronto, and they had it shipped over there. And so my family, we all have Nissans. I mean, we do have some other cars, but it's mostly Nissans. My cousins, my uncles, and we were even featured in one of their newsletters as
Wow.
like a Nissan family and showed all the generations. And we all they took pictures of us in front of our Nissans, and we
Oh my
all
God.
bought them from that dealership. But you know what? It again, it goes back to experience because it's somebody
Yes.
we trust. We know the owners. And I remember going there and my daughter was like, she was like just a couple weeks old. And we're there and like the receptionist knows us and like she was taking care of Samantha while we were looking at a car and you know, and she loved it. And like, you
Wow.
know, they were so proud. And I remember my daughter drew a picture of one of the cars and you know, Eddie was so impressed by it. He put it up in his office and he would show everybody. And like those are intangible things, but
Oh, they
if we're
are
gonna buy a
totally.
car, we're gonna go buy a car from them, right? Because they're like family now. Yeah.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
I feel this
wow.
affinity to Nissan now too, right? I'm like, they don't know who I am, but Nissan to me means family.
This
Look
is
at me,
good.
I'm like this walking advertisement for
It's
these things, but I guess I'm a sucker for these things, but it's all these intangibles,
Apple and
right?
Nissan are getting enormous earned
That's
media today.
right.
Well, of course, I don't know how many people are going to see this, but
I'll better put some ad spin behind it, but
yes.
it's like it goes to what you were saying, right? Like people were
Yeah.
really appreciative of you just saying something and you're trying to create a culture with the company that you're working with in terms of
Yeah.
helping people. So you add that personal touch and maybe you can be the Nissan to somebody else, right? Or you can be the Apple to somebody else, right?
That's the goal. Yeah, it takes a lot of work to get there, and it's as Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, it's one person at a time that you want to touch, and just
Yeah.
it adds up over time.
Yeah. So
But you got to be willing to put in that work, and I am. I
that's
mean,
true.
I work every day.
Mhm.
I'm not. I don't enjoy taking days off most of the time. I like working some part of every day because I'm just so excited about
Right.
stuff. And sometimes I'm stressed and I need to produce results or whatever. But that's where the fear creeps in.
Mhm.
But when I can work through that fear, then I get back to my excitement of just the craft and like wanting to improve my craft every day.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I'm in that space, it's an amazing feeling.
Isn't that awesome that you get to basically play all day for your work?
It is. Yeah, it really is. It's a blessing. It's a lot of responsibility, but still,
Mhm.
like, I'll take it because I get to do this,
Mhm.
and I get to continue to grow as a person because it takes that, like, to continue to face your fears and grow as a person to
Yep.
serve others in a bigger way.
Yep.
Is just or even to share your voice on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. All of these things take some courage, and
Right.
so
Yeah.
it's really marketing is this amazing personal growth journey to me.
It is. Well, my takeaway today
Yeah.
is to give Twitter another chance. So,
I
what's
would
your
love
takeaway?
I followed you a couple days ago. I don't know if you
See,
noticed,
I'm
but
terrible. I didn't know that.
well, you're probably not on it, but yeah, I would love for
Honestly,
you to.
my VA is, so, I should tell her to go look for you.
Yeah, I would love
Give
for
you
you
a
to be
shout
on
out.
there, and then because there's a lot of cool people sharing good insights and just
Uh-huh.
doing good work,
Yeah. No, I'm
just
gonna
like we
try and
have
be more present there as a
on Facebook.
person versus a brand, and I have a couple different Twitter handles, so
Oh,
I'll figure out. Yeah, I do.
I've had a couple over the years too. I've had actually a few, but
I
like
have
this was
quite a few.
my main one, just my name.
Mhm.
Yeah, without the
Yeah.
idiot in it.
Now you
Am
gotta
I
add it
starting
in. You
start
gotta
a
add it
different
in.
one?
Okay, so what was your takeaway from today?
My take, well, there's a number of things we could say, but I think one of the core themes is really just facing fears and noticing that in every moment, like being as mindful as you can about that, because asking yourself, is this remarkable? Like I'm wearing a purple shirt today. I just really recently, actually, it was within the last day, I re-listened to Seth Godin's Purple Cow. I don't know if you've
Mhm,
ever read that, but it's one of those marketing classics because it's all about being remarkable,
mhm.
not just a cow, but a purple cow that someone's going to say, oh my God, that's a purple cow.
Right.
And how
Oh
do
my
you
gosh,
become
it's a
that?
purple idiot.
It's a purple idiot. It's a purple and brown idiot.
So on that note, I have to
Yeah.
run, but
So
thank you so much. Let's have another
yeah,
scary or idiotic talk and soon.
yeah, I've got to run too, but yeah, I think that's my main takeaway, and really just look at all the brands that have succeeded massively in doing that, and I think that can help us all in embracing it a little bit more.
Yeah. Well, have a good week, and I'll talk to you soon, Sunny. Thanks for stopping by.
Alrighty, bye, Leanna.